Okay, I don't want to add probably you're already like a bit confused, but now I will add with more confusing, because when you want to collect your samples, sometimes your samples also contain something else. So now I've been asked with Yaya to give about the biosafety and biosecurity in collecting your samples. But before we start, I would like to ask you, when you heard about biosafety, what is in your mind then? What is biosafety? Biosafety? Come on, wake up. It's already 9:25. Biosafety? No, not that part. This part only. Biosafety? Never heard about it? Okay, Mbak Tika, please. So biosafety is something related to the samples and also person who handling the samples. Okay, so what is biosecurity then? Yes, Ibu?
This is something that dealing with the environment, the hazards, biohazard.
So this is to prevent unintentional exposure. We never intentionally expose it, but unintentionally, or their accident release. And in the other hand, the biosecurity is protection, control, and accountability. So here, prevent their unauthorized access, loss, theft, misuse. Sometimes if we see the movie, sometimes we know that sometimes there is an feline, a scientist, something that they want to use the samples to other purposes, diversion, or also unintentional release. So actually, biosafety is protecting people from bad agents, but biosecurity is protecting agents from bad people. So this is something like, yeah, it sounds like contradiction, but we will see they are not. Okay, so we mentioned here about the valuable biological material. What actually the valuable biological material is? What do you think is valuable in your material? I like to see people like doing this. Okay.
Can you please repeat your question?
Okay. We are talking about the valuable biological materials. What is in your mind? What is the valuable biological material is? What is not definition, but what is the material that we call like valuable?
So I think it means that how important the material is.
Important, yes, but what kind of material? Yes. DNA, protein, okay. Else? Virus, depend on the research. Okay, that's very broad based on your research. Okay, so actually we have a lot of valuable biological materials. We also have cell culture lines. We also have pathogens and toxins. So this one I put it red because this is that should be addressed in a biosecurity, because it should be addressed for dual use nature. Dual use meaning that it, and also vaccines, other pharmaceutical products. If you are working in pharmaceutical company, so these vaccines or other pharmaceutical product is very valuable for you. Or yeast and bacteria, if you work with food, it's also very valuable. Genetically modified organism, even though I don't know whether it already exists in Indonesia or not. Exist, but we made it? Okay. You did? Wow. Okay. So non-pathogenic microorganisms also, and like you mentioned, cellular and component genetic elements. So it seems that everything that you are talking in a biobank is valuable biological material, right? Or not? Okay. So, and yeah, this one is looks like very USA, extraterrestrial samples. Well, I don't know whether we have it here or not, but why we have to think about biosafety? Once more, biosafety is protecting people from the agent. Why? Sorry? Okay, because actually we have what we call acquired infection. If you work in the labs, actually you are prone or susceptible to have this acquired infection in the lab, and they are unknown. And also their exposure or aerosol that was possible mean of transmission. We have this data, 2 cases acquired is coming from the aerosol, and unknown is even bigger, 767. So we have to be very careful when we work with the biological agent. So for example, if you're collecting blood, we don't know what is inside the blood of the patient. Do you know? No, we don't know. Okay. So aerosol, probably some of you asking where the aerosol coming from? When you centrifuging, and then you want to be as fast as possible after centrifuging, you open the lid, and then you open without waiting for a while. Actually, when you open your tubes, the aerosol comes out. You never realize that, so just keep it for sometimes. And also when you do pipetting, you do pipetting vigorously, like whoa, okay? Actually, you're also creating the aerosol. So, and it says that aerosol is, from 3,009, okay, like, how many percent? 20, 25, okay, something like that. So it's a lot. And also others. Now explosion of research interests, like Yaya mentioned, now we have genetic modified organisms. Probably for the first time, these organisms is okay. But when we genetically modify them, probably they become, the property, or the biological property then differ from the nature one. And also we have this one, the outbreak of emerging and re-emerging disease like SARS. I think we have this SARS. We also have this avian influenza, the avian flu, for sure. Hopefully not with the Ebola. No. But 70% of the emerging diseases are zoonotic disease, meaning the disease can be that can be transferred from animal to human. And I don't know how many of you working with animal. Is any of you working with animal? Yes? Okay, because you also? Okay. Chicken, okay. Yeah, for avian flu it's also like, Okay, because for animal, actually, from biosafety point of view, we have higher degree of, how do you say? Because it's animal, right? We don't know, where this animal goes and what this animal have in their body, and if they have something like they have a headache or something, they never mention to you, I have a headache. So we never know what happened to the animal. So for the animal biosafety, we have one level higher compared to for human biosafety. So this one, we have SARS, we have bird flu, we have mad cow. But not this is it, but we also have this level of IED, is the emerging infectious disease. In Indonesia, we have here not close to Indonesia, it's Nipah virus and also enterovirus, but I don't know about the rest. But the red there is the emerging one. The blue one is the re-emerging. So we have a lot of diseases in the world, and here is the one that they said deliberately emerging. So the anthrax. So therefore, we have the anthrax cases. But beforehand, the biosafety is not only related to what how can we protect ourselves. For example, here is the Elizabeth R. Griffin Research Foundation. This is a very famous foundation, especially if we are working with biosafety and biosecurity, because this lady was killed of a drop of herpes B virus to the eye. And actually at that time, she already wear gloves, mask, and proper clothes, but not the eye, unfortunately. So, and these things is dropped to her eye, and she died 6 weeks after the accident. And then she had I think she was the researcher working with the macaque, I think, with the monkey. And then the father, after the family afterward, thinking about, okay, so this monkey can be used as a weapon as well, because it only takes like 6 weeks after the accident someone's died of this monkey. So therefore, this foundation is not only for biosafety, but also more for biosecurity. Others is a female scientist in Bernard Notch Institute. I think this is a good institute compared to Yogyakarta. So she also try to work as proper as possible, but still she punctured with a needle that may have contained with deadly Ebola virus. And still, she had something developing fever to 24 hours later. So we never know what we have in our samples. Okay, I frighten you, I scare you, okay? That's why I hear. I think that's why Yaya invite me, because I become someone who scare you. Okay, so this is the component of biosafety. We have hazard recognition. So once you will work with a biological agent, you should know the hazard. Whereas if I work with blood, for example, what is possibility inside the blood? We never know, but we can identify. And so in this case, we have to think the worst scenario. Never think about the good thing. Think about the worst things here. That's why the biosafety and biosecurity person, usually they are paranoid, because they always think about the bad things. But it's good, because then you are prepare yourself for the bad condition. We also have, okay, so actually for this biosafety, the focus is in the containment. How can this agent we put in a containment, then it won't give us, it won't infect us. That's what the case for the biosafety. So therefore, we have BSL-1, BSL-2, BSL-3, BSL-4, because we want to protect ourselves for the agent that we work with. That's the point of the biosafety. And I think for biosecurity, the most, the most agent is the one that with the risk, the high risk, that usually work in BSL-3 and BSL-4. Like you see here, BSL-3, tuberculosis is including in BSL-3. So if you work with tuberculosis, then you should work in a BSL-3 laboratory. Because why we put it in as BSL-3? Because this one is the airborne disease. Once it's an airborne disease, then it should be contained in a BSL-3. Why Ebola put in a BSL-4? Because until now we don't have remedy at all for Ebola. Do we have or not? Not yet. Okay. So this is something like dangerous exotic agents, and it's also aerosol transmitted. So something like transmitted from aerosol or airborne disease should be put in a BSL-3. Okay, now why we have to think about the biosecurity? Because those agents, those dangerous agents can be used dual use research of concern. So can be used either for good or bad purposes. It depends on where you work with. And therefore it's biofare terrorists since 6th century BC. So I think the recent one is 2001. Probably you know, the anthrax that is sent to the, I think, summer senator in, and it's sent by letter. It's very easy. Just put it in a letter and send it, and then in some minutes, hours, days, you're already infected by anthrax. So, okay, so this is why they are very, very interested in this biosecurity. So actually now CDC already put the agents, bioterrorism agents, in category A, B, and C. I will make a big one. So anthrax is in a category A. This is the highest rank. Do we have something here? Clostridium botulinum, yes. It is one of the, probably we have it here, I don't know. Plague, yes, this, probably not. And category B, we have brucella, we have salmonella, we have typhoid, typhus fever, encephalitis, and etc. They categorize as B. And C is Nipah virus and hantavirus. And if we, so the map, hantavirus and Nipah virus is just close by. I think it's Malaysia or Singapore. So it's in our neighborhood. Okay, so this is the component of biosecurity. We have physical security for sure, yes, because we want to keep those things inside the lab and to prevent them from someone who had a bad intention to steal it. And we also have the personal security, we have transfer security. I think when Yaya mentioned about all the documents in GCLP, I think this is also including there, because actually the agent that is already in your lab, in your biobank, should be traceable. Where it goes, what you did with those agents is under the biosecurity. Even when you destroy it, you have to have document saying that these agents already been destroyed. Okay, so we have also material control accountabilities. I think that's including there. So we have program management and also information security. So biosecurity not only for the agent, but also information that comes up from the agent. If we did some experiments, we have very precious data. We want to keep that not for ourselves, but at least for our institution, unless you have collaboration, and then you will share it with your collaborator. I think you won't open that data to everybody, put it in a blog, put it in a Facebook, something like that. It's impossible. Okay, but because we knew that biosecurity is protecting agent from us, and the biosecurity is protecting, it's the other run. Okay, biosafety is protecting us from the agent, and biosecurity is protecting the agent from us. So therefore we have sometimes conflict between biosafety and biosecurity, but usually because for biosafety the information, the communication should be open. But in biosecurity, because we don't know what the intention of these people, so we have to secure restricted information and communication. The sample should be recognizable, but for biosecurity, the sample should be coding. But I think for GCLP, we also have an agreement that the sample should be coding. So therefore, it's between the biosafety and biosecurity. And also in contingency plan, in the emergency, when the emergency happened, actually that's the most conflict between biosecurity and biosafety, because in emergency situation we want to people go out as fast as possible from the emergency area, but the biosecurity doesn't want people to leave, so you stay there, because we don't know whether this emergency is created by someone who really intend to do the emergency situation. So it's something that still conflict between biosecurity and biosafety. But I think now we have the consensus that we have to evacuate people as soon as possible, and then put the agent in safe in a proper place. So we have the synergy, and the synergy also a lot. Actually, the physical protection is similar. We also have similar procedure aspect, material control and accountability, personal reliability, and also transport. So if you want to transport, if you want to have the personal reliability, even for biosecurity, you have to be sure about the, how do you say, the history of the person. So if you employ someone in your institution, and he or she as a, how do you say, in a security person, you have to know the background of this person. You have to know exactly what the background, because probably, I don't know. So therefore, it's paranoid. And we also have physical protection here, but actually laboratory biosecurity should be built upon a firm foundation of good laboratory practice. So biosafety actually is the basis of biosecurity. If you have good biosafety, and then you will have also a good biosecurity. So this is the physical protection. Usually we have this area 1, area 2, area 3. Area 1 meaning this is low risk. So everybody, not everybody, ground, public access, office, warehouse, most of people can go there. Limited area, moderate risk, laboratory, sensitive, or we have exclusion area. So probably, I don't know whether you have this exclusion area in your institution. Yes? You have? How many layers?
And the lab for the DNA, RNA, or for the culture.
Okay. So at least you have number 1, because number 1 is for public, for the patient, and then the 2 is the one that limited areas for the lab. But you don't have the exclusive area inside again. You don't have it. I think Aikman has that. Yeah, you have BSL3. So to the property, the outside, then you go with the badge for the limited area, but then you go on, you have the something more to go to specific area. Okay, so actually that's physical protection that good in biosafety and biosecurity as well, because it makes the access limited for unauthorized person. Here, sometimes in Gajah Mada, I told you, we sometimes have people who sell something in the lab. Yeah, that's happened. So now, what we updated inventory regularly. I think yesterday you checked for the quality control, but actually you also have to update it for inventory, not only for the quality, but also the inventory. Identification and selection of personnel with access. So only certain people, certain person can enter the access. Documentation of internal and external transfer. So if we transfer these samples, it should be with all the document. Inactivation or disposal of material, like I mentioned, if we want to dispose the material, it should be, the document should be there. So in this case, we cannot say if we want to do something and we go to the storage and we found that our sample is no longer there. and we have no document at all. Who steal it? And we don't know, because everybody have access to this, to the fridge, for example. So everybody just can go to the fridge and take this out, and that's it. So this is something that we should consider when we have the biobank. So someone should really really sit in the refrigerator, or no, in a storage place, or someone really in charge for the transfer and of the biologic material. So in this case, we hope that with working safely, in keeping the work securely, we will support the global public health security. So we have biosafety risk, we have biosecurity risk. Biosafety risk is coming from the agent, whether it's infectious or not, whether it's pathogen or not, how the transmission of this pathogen and etc. We calculate it in a biosafety risk. And in biosecurity risk is we calculate whether this agent, how many the probability that people will interest in using this for something else. This is what we see in a biosecurity risk. So we combine this in integration process, so we have laboratory biorisk management. So biorisk actually is biosecurity, biosafety and biosecurity. We have three components of the biorisk management. Risk assessment. So first thing is assess your risk. If you work, please assess your risk. I don't know whether people here we don't really used to do assessment before we work. We just jumped into what we work and then we see what happened, right? Or not? Yeah, I see your smile. I also in that case. I mean, we like to have something and then without any assessment we just want to do the things. So we also have to do what we call risk mitigation, what we will do, what we do if we have the condition. And we also performance or quality control. Actually, these slides helps you more. In risk assessment is what is my risk? If I work with this agent, what is my risk? What will I do with the risk? Of course, we always try to eliminate or to minimize the risk. So what we do to minimize the risk, and then how did I do? Whether what I already did for the risk mitigation is sufficient enough to minimize the risk. So if it's not, then we have to go to risk assessment again and make probably a new SOP, and then again to see whether what we did is already good or not. So this is what we call the biorisk management processes. So I have case. So I think you can work in pair, not in pair. Okay? Are you ready? Okay. So I just made up this. Let's see. This is our institution. Is a big, huge, and very institute. Your institution appointed to be a reference lab for Ebola study. Okay, let's say Ebola. Your institution not only performs lab work, but also keep the samples for further study. Discuss with the person next to you what are the things that should be considered related to biorisk management. Okay, 5 minutes, is that enough? Wants to start first? From the hospital? Yeah? Yeah? Oh, still discuss? Okay. From UI? Okay.
Okay, we'll try to answer. In this case, first we have to know our lab have the BSL-4?
Yes.
Yes. Or not? If no, of course we can. We can reject.
Okay. Let's say you have BSL-4.
Yes.
Even though I know it's only 3 in
Yes.
this word.
And if yes, so we have to think about the about biorisk. Yeah, we have to handle all the biorisk management. Like you said before, assessment, risk assessment, and mitigation and quality control. So of course we have for assessment we have to know all there is from the Ebola, so we can prepare for that, and then also what I said. Yes, yeah.
For
all
you did it for the biorisk management.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Else from Dharma is still on the phone. Sorry. It's from EDP or from? Okay.
So the first thing that we need to do is doing risk assessment about the Ebola and about the Ebola, and then make the good system for storage.
Okay.
In our lab, which is the special design of lab with BSL-4.
But BSL-4 is not for storage.
Yeah. And then make sure that we have all the SOP for all the activities that we do in the lab.
Okay.
And then give capacity building for the staff.
For the staff?
Yeah.
What is capacity building you mentioned here?
Maybe, but training.
Training, okay.
Handling the sample. Yeah. And
okay, that's it? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Collaboration, okay.
Okay, the first thing is about risk assessment.
Risk assessment,
So know,
both biorisk and biosecurity.
Yes, so we know about the risks of the agent or the risk for us. And then make sure that we have BSL-4 because this is Ebola.
Okay.
And we design a restricted or isolated area.
Yeah.
And person in charge, in well trained, and he or she is the only one who can access the well trained. And then for the sample, make sure that we have kind like a freeze or we'll keep the agent there so we
keep the agent in a safe place. Okay.
And then last but not least, we have designed a risk mitigation.
Risk mitigation. Okay. I think I probably will ask Maimuna, if you don't mind, what is the condition in Africa while these Ebola outbreaks happen there? Because as we might know, probably Africa also doesn't have BSL-4. Okay, thank you.
About that, so it was a big challenge in Africa. And if you remember, when the Ebola outbreak strike, let's go a little bit back further. You asked the question about animals and asked who's working with animals. But in fact, you don't even have to be working with animals. The issue is there's a lot of change in our biodiversity. You can be working in the forests in the woods and you come across any animal who could be infected. So you don't actually have to be a farmer in a farm or whatever. We are being invaded by all these things through different routes. So in fact, in Africa, they still are trying to nail how it happened. The Ebola virus in Africa was never identified before in any humans. It must have come through an animal. They think it's a chimpanzee or monkey, but they have tested many of them and they still cannot find the virus. So it could have mutated from the animal and infected the human with a different strain. And so that's why it was a real problem, first of all, to identify and so on. But if you remember what happened in Ebola, the countries that were affected were Sierra Leone, Liberia, especially. And these are two countries that were at war. And you know when there's war in your country, there's breakdown in all the infrastructure. So the primary health care in these countries had broken down. The hospitals were not functioning, clinics were not working, they didn't have even basic medical facility, let alone basic laboratories. So therefore, it was difficult to contain everything. It was difficult to identify and isolate. And then the other problem we have in Africa is the cultural. We hear a lot about cultural differences. In Africa, people pay great attention to the dead. So burying the dead was a thing that the family, they would not just throw their dead away. They have to bring them in the home and everybody will be kissing and whatever them before they are buried. So so that's how more of the strain was spread, because nobody knew what it was. So it was a big, big problem. They didn't have basic infrastructure. The cultural difference, the cultural norms there interfered with interruption of the virus. But when we talk about biobanking, was even more of a challenge. They didn't have proper freezers to store. They didn't have proper security, personal protection equipment were not there. It was later on when the UN and CDC and others were coming, they brought in the gloves, the hoods and everything to protect the people. So up to now, Ebola, even though the outbreak has ceased, but the biobanking for Ebola isolates and Ebola. So the managing all those samples is still a big problem. The international scientific organization, they want the samples because they're very important for research. The countries are refusing to give away those samples because they say you take the samples away, you're going to do things, they don't trust them. And yet the countries do not have the proper infrastructure to store them. In fact, some researchers are even still taking samples home to protect their samples because they don't want anybody to come at night to take their samples. So it's still a big, big problem to manage even the samples that were collected from the outbreak. Forget about the samples good enough for research, even to protect the environment and the people is still a problem. So the issue here is that we just pray that when there's an outbreak, we have the proper infrastructure to cope with it. And when you have wars and things like that, it's very difficult. So they really are struggling, and we never know when something else is going to happen. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mamuna. Okay, so I think, I don't know what happened in our country when we have the avian influenza, because it's also an outbreak here in Indonesia. So I don't know what happened in the hospital, what the people do, because I don't think that our infrastructure is also ready for those kind of outbreak. Is anyone here has the experience with when we have this avian influenza? No? Nobody? Okay, so if then you can share what happened there. So bioethical and scientific analysis of the research project before they are authorized. Also allocation of responsibility and authorization among staff and facilitate manager. You also mentioned about training. We have also to do communication, development, training, especially in emergency plans. So we also have to have tailored biosecurity training for employee and for external responder. And also while you are sending it, transfer it, you also have to make communication with them. So this is the reference I use is for biosafety and biosecurity from WHO. Is there any question? I open for question. And this manual is available in a website, so it's for free. You can open it at any time. Any question? Or we are really keen for coffee break? Oh yes, me too. Have a nice day.